here with two guests returning to our show today. Adam Posen is the president of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Also back with us, Bill Lee, chief economist at the Milken Institute. Adam, let me start with you. Scott Bessent repeating now familiar line about his boss, quote, President Trump creates what I would call strategic uncertainty in negotiations. He then went on to say that we've created a process, the aperture of uncertainty will be narrowing, there will be certainty. Now, you posted about this on Monday, and you talked about this sort of game theory, strategic uncertainty. But you went on to say in your post, look, doesn't he get it? Nobody's buying this. It's already a failing strategy. Some of us warned that this would backfire. What do you make of that and what else we heard today?
Thank you for having me, Becky, and thanks for citing my posts and my articles. I think there is a clear message that weaponizing uncertainty, or what President Nixon called the madman theory, backfires in economic affairs because millions and billions of decisions are made independent of whatever you're negotiating bilaterally. And also because it's not like the nuclear talks where people don't want to risk you going nuclear. It's people are willing to risk big conflicts in economics because it cuts both ways. So the Secretary of the Treasury is doing his job as he sees it, and he's going to keep saying that. But each time he says it, it's less credible because whether he or NEC Director Hassett or Commerce Secretary Lutnick, every time they say we're going to have deals and there are no deals, but also no process, it just further confirms. I mean, we have what the Japanese officials who came to the U.S. say. We have what the UK officials who came to the U.S. say. We have what dozens of officials who were here for the IMF World Bank spring meetings have said, which is they've got nothing to talk about because the other side, the U.S., doesn't present any serious negotiations or discussions.
Bill, what did you take out of what we've just heard from the Treasury Secretary? After all, this is, Trump's top economic official on Donald Trump's 100th day in office, one assumes, addressing the press and wanting to deliver a message that will satisfy not just the reporters in the room, but, for example, the markets. And I'm looking at what the markets are doing now. The Dow is off. It's dropped into negative territory since Bessent started talking. The S&P and the NASDAQ also off. Look, they've had 5 winning sessions at the end of the day, and there may be some profit taking here, but there is certainly still a sense of uncertainty out there, isn't there?
There certainly is uncertainty, but I think what we should focus on are the goals of the administration when they came in, which is to restructure the U.S. economy and to restructure the global trading system. That's a very ambitious policy agenda, and I think rather than just deal with the rhetoric, I'd rather look at some of the facts. The administration has told us that they have received commitments of over $1.5 trillion worth of foreign investments in the United States. And it's capped off by the SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle deal, which is over $500 billion in the most advanced technologies in the United States, and I think that's a good indication that foreign investors really take seriously the smaller government, lower taxes, and fewer regulations that the Trump administration has promised. Now, I agree with Adam that...
Stop you there for a moment. These are commitments. We haven't seen those... Yeah. These were just commitments. And, of course, these commitments were pretty much made before the beginning of what has been this, period of real uncertainty, of volatility in these markets. And, look, I'm broadcasting here from the Gulf region, a region that, frankly, is pretty supportive of a Donald Trump administration. It's where much of this incoming money, is coming from. But even here, there is a sense of worry about just how unpredictable things are at this point and volatile. They've seen, for example, a depreciation in the US dollar, these currencies pegged in this region to the US dollar. And there's a real sense of, what happens next. And that sense of uncertainty is not good for anybody, not least those who are looking to invest surely in the United States.
Becky, let me identify, I think, the real source of uncertainty, which is a growing, nagging sense that President Trump's political capital is being dissipated by all this talk about tariffs, which is a very minor part of the agenda, and the smaller government, lower taxes, and fewer regulations is yet to be put in place in full force. And that's the heart of, as President Trump has said, and Secretary Bessent said, the heart of the agenda is to get those items passed. And I think even though we have investment commitments, they have not been withdrawn with all this uncertainty. As far as the dollar is concerned, I want to remind everyone that the Federal Reserve Index of the dollar right now is at its highest level in the last 5 years, and over the last 3 years, it is above the average. So we really have a very strong overvalued dollar, and I think it's not surprising to see the markets bring it back down to a more reasonable level, which would be good for our exporters. So I think the assessment really is one where it's half empty, half full kind of assessment, and unfortunately, most of the reporting that's been done and the rhetoric from many of my peers and other economists has been to focus on the half-empty part. I absolutely agree with Adam that the deficit and the debt burden really is the overwhelming problem for this administration and for every administration since Clinton. So I think the U.S. has a long-standing problem with the deficit, but I think the way of getting out of the deficit is to increase the productivity of the U.S. economy and its revenue base, which is exactly what President Trump is trying to do: get more foreign capital into the United States, create more income and more employment for U.S. citizens.